Before we move into the final segment, definitely check us out on iTunes. That's where you can find the NBA Draft mailbag and our mock drafts from the past 2 weeks. 2 episodes that we recommend you check them out. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, go check them out as well. They're also on our YouTube page. And the mailbag does have timestamps, so you can jump around easily. We talked about 10 topics. It's an hour and a half long. Ton of content for you guys, so definitely do check that out. But guys, I was reading an article from the guys from Draft Express, now on ESPN. It was published by Mike Schmitz of ESPN. He spent 9 days in Europe evaluating NBA draft prospects in Germany, France, Italy, Lithuania, Slovenia, Spain, Denmark, and Montenegro. Great to have that ESPN money so you could do that. That'd be super fun. But he starts off, and the big part of it is a profile on Sekou Doumbouya. And reading the article, I never thought to put him versus Rui Hachimura next to each other and kind of evaluate the two next to each other. It was kind of just like, these are the guys that I think. I never, for some reason, just put them next to each other because they both are forwards. They're both around 6'9". Sekou's a little bit leaner, not a little bit, a lot leaner than Rui Hachimura, but Hachimura, again, is older at 22 years old or 21 years old. So when I finally put them next to each other, I never understood why I had Rui Hachimura above Sekou Doumbouya. In our last mock draft, I had Rui Hachimura going 8th to the Pelicans and Sekou Doumbouya going 12th to the T-Wolves. And just rethinking about it and thinking about my philosophy and thinking about my ways of picking draft spots and slotting them in my big board, I have no idea why I had Sekou Doumbouya below Rui Hachimura because of his kind of raw palate that he does have, his clean slate, his youthfulness, his ability to be built up. I personally think that Sekou Doumbouya is a more intriguing prospect and a player that should be taken above Rui Hachimura. And then I realized that, Ricky, you're on the other side of the fence than me. And then I asked Dave, and Dave said he's on the fence just between the two of them. So we're pretty much just going to do Sekou Doumbouya versus Rui Hachimura. Who should be picked higher? Who has the higher ceiling, et cetera, et cetera. So, Ricky, I'm going to send it to you first. Give us the pitch on Rui Hachimura. What do you like about him? How does he pan out as an NBA prospect? I know you've been talking a lot about the whole Giannis thing. I don't really love that comparison, but talk about him.
And the thing is, first off, I want to say between the two, they are vastly different prospects, where Rui Hachimura, I believe he's just over 21.
21 turned 21 on February 8th.
We know pretty much have an idea of, okay, what he could possibly be. Whereas you look at Sekou, he just turned 18 not too long ago. I think end of last year, early this year.
December 23rd.
He just turned 18, so he's very young. And for me with Rui, like when I watch him play, he has everything that I want from a 3 at the next level. He can shoot. He can drive to the basket. Yeah, he's not the best defensive player out there, but he is capable of defending out there. He can assist the ball, doesn't turn over the ball a lot, can get to the foul line, can score points. He's got everything that I want. And the thing that I think hit it perfectly, and I want to give him a shout out, is one of our listeners, Kentaro Kadalek. I hope I said your name right. He actually hit me up about Rui this week, and he said, at Ricky Widmer, Rui Hachimura is 6'8". He is required to play power forward on the Gonzaga Bulldogs, but I think his position in the NBA should be small forward. He is putting on some weight because he plays the 4 in college basketball, but when he enters the NBA, he should lose some of his weight. Please look at this highlight of him going up against Josh Jackson, Jason Tatum, with him being skinnier. His jump shot looks much better than now. He is much faster too. And then he goes on to say he doesn't like Coach Few. Rui should be at the 3 in his opinion. And then asked me what I think. I'm the same way. Like, I think that Rui is going to be a 3 at the next level because you look at it too, Sekou's going to be 6'9", 6'10". Rui's 6'8". To me, 6'8" at the 4th, the next level, he'll get eaten alive.
Right now, Sekou Doumbouya lists in at 6'9". Could still be growing. Yeah. So that's for sure. And he used to be 230, and he's cut down significantly because he started taking his training a little bit more seriously. But the big thing with that, at least comment that I do want to say is, let's not blame Mark Few for trying to win basketball games.
No. It's not blaming him, but it's like...
But the reason why he's doing that is because Hachimura at the 4 gives them the best ability to win basketball games.
But in the NBA, he's probably like... I'm in the same boat. At the NBA, I don't want him playing the 4. I want him playing the 3.
I think they're both 3s in my mind. I don't think Sekou Doumbouya is going to be big enough to be a 4.
Well, Sekou's versatile.
He can always add on weight to play the 4, but I think he is very fluid at attacking the basket. I think he is a slasher similar to Hachimura, but I think his defensive upside is much more shown, and it has been shown overseas as well. In Hachimura, I think that he is athletic. I don't know if he's extremely athletic, but he is athletic. I just don't know if the defensive upside's there compared to Sekou, and I think right now you're seeing a flash of Rui's completed game. His because he's older, he's been under a great basketball coach in Mark Few. You see him on a great team. Sekou's kind of this unknown, but the big thing that I love about him is the fact that he is a little bit unknown, and he is such a blank, raw palette that has been playing for a long time overseas but hasn't had it to click. And I think a big part of that is just him not being able to be in a culture that is focused solely on basketball. And he has now gone to a place in, I'm going to fuck up the name, but it's Limoges. He's in Pro and the LNB Pro A. But now he's kind of in a culture that is focusing more on basketball, and you're seeing the growth that he is able to do. And I think now coming over to the NBA to fully be focused on basketball, being in that culture, this is now your job. You're being paid for it, and being paid more than you would be overseas. I think that's going to give him that extra edge. And being 3 years younger than Rui Hachimura is something that is way more intriguing to me than taking a guy in Hachimura who has already been coached up, who has already been a part of a team, who's now going to have to go from taking it to be about winning games to then being a pro, where Sekou's not really doing that right now. Sekou's already a pro. I think that a big thing that we at least are overlooking for Sekou Doumbouya is the fact that he is only 18 years old and will be the youngest player in this NBA draft. And that is so important to me. I know he hasn't been extremely wowing overseas right now. He isn't putting up crazy stats like Luka was. He's in a completely different league than Luka was. And that's a reason why he's not going top 5 in this draft. But I think just because he's not exactly similar to Luka doesn't mean he should be looked at as a player that cannot have one of the higher ceilings in this draft. I think he has a massively high ceiling.
I'm going to throw out another similarity, and this isn't about game. This is basically because of age, and they're both international players. I feel like there are going to be some people that look at international players this year, like Sekou, and go, oh, well, look at Luka. Like, he's the same age as Luka, but like you said, they're not in the same place. The thing I look at is, where on the scale is Sekou? If the bottom is Frank and the top is Luka, where is Sekou? Because
I think that's completely unfair.
Because Frank was another one that came in 18. He's had 2 years now, and of course it could also be where he lands. But I don't think we can take that away of with Sekou, where is he on that scale of the top end being Doncic and the low end being Frank?
I think that's a very poor low end because I think Frank. I mean, there's guys that never come over. There's guys that still don't flash this much potential. Frank is still extremely young.
Of the ones that come over, like recency,
I think the low end would, if we're using at least NBA guys, it would probably be Georgios Papagiannis. Just because he was a guy that bounced around from teams, was immediately released by.
He was a teen pick, wasn't he? First round 13, in the 13, 13
but we didn't even have him in our. Let's be honest. That was the Kings being the Kangs.
I'm saying Frank's a player that still has potential. Georgios Papagiannis is not a
that's what I'm saying.
A blip on the radar.
Is Sekou going to be a guy that you draft now and 2 years later? Like, how quickly is he going to make an impact? That's the question.
To me, the difference is the fact that Frank came over and need to fill into his body, where Sekou is basically a grown-ass man in an 18-year-old. And
he could still grow into his body.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like you said, he went up to 230. He's now cut back down to 210.
Yeah.
He's now taking his training more seriously. Like, Frank didn't see the inside of an actual workout room when he was over in Europe. But that's just, he was not that kind of a person. So I think that from a pure physical standpoint, Sekou is far more developed than what Frank was when he came over. Sekou definitely has a lot more strength to his game. At 6'9", he has an absolutely great first step. The thing when it comes to him that concerns me about when you're talking floor to ceiling stuff is, where's his basketball IQ going to be at? Because he has worked under some coaches in Europe who are basically, I would call them middle. I wouldn't say they're at the top end of coaching, but I don't know European basketball inside and out, so correct me if I'm wrong. But if he has the opportunity to come over to the NBA, I think that will be the big first question is, where is he from a basketball IQ standpoint? Because from the few clips that I've been able to watch of him and the 2 games I've actually seen all the way through, it looks like a lot of the time he is leaning heavily, and rightfully so, on his athleticism to win him a lot of one-on-one matchups, to constantly keep that pressure on teams defensively. He absolutely has an advantage over a lot of the guys in Europe, but when it comes to, catching guys going, I think the one article I was reading was like, oh, well, he's always chasing people around screens. He doesn't seem to always pick up on, off-ball movements as quickly as other players do. Like, it's just, there's a lot to the basketball IQ argument because he has not played in the NBA or even at NCAA, where I think college coaches are much more revered from our side just because we're more familiar. So that's a question for me.
Biggest knock, and that's fair. I think that the IQ is a question that is important. I don't know how easy it is for him to pick it up exactly.
Yeah.
I think he is fairly fluent when it comes to English, so I think he will be able to communicate from what I understand. But the big thing that has been a knock or something that has been questioned is his ability to lock in. That's something that Schmidt says. He says his fundamentals, discipline, and consistency can improve on the defensive end, especially off ball, as he's committing 6.1 fouls per 40 minutes. But Doumbouya can slide with guards, big body bigs, or cover ground in the blink of an eye to erase shots at the rim. Then one thing Taylor said, I think that's a coach. I don't know who Taylor is, who he's referring to in this article, but he says he fits into that positionless basketball mold. When he's locked in defensively, he's tough. So I think the biggest thing for him is just being locked in. And if he's locked in, that athleticism can really shine. And then I think once he comes over and is able to learn the game and able to pick up the system and if he's into the right spot, I think that IQ can come because typically I think the biggest thing for guys to succeed in the NBA is being Luka level smart is going to surpass any athleticism. Yeah. But also, if you have instinctual athleticism and you know where to be, that is something that's huge as well. Because let's look at Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson's committing 4 fouls.
That man bites on every single pump fake.
He's committing 4 fouls a game, but he also has 4.3 blocks a game. Yeah. So a big thing is how you're using your athleticism is instinctually. So I think if he's locked in, his instinctual athleticism will be able to make up for it. And one thing too, just to put that, go back to Frank. Frank's also not 21 yet. He'll be 21 July 28th. So he's younger than a guy like Rui Hachimura. So it's like something where even if he's not developing right away and he's not putting up points immediately, I think it's something that he is the smarter pick because although he might not come into it right away, he might not be a guy who hits right away like a Kristaps or like a Luka. I think that he could be a slow grower. And even if he's not being a fantastic offensive scorer, being a stud, I think having the ability to be in the right place will be huge for him. And if he is in the right place, that might help his growth. Because I think Frank might not be in the right place. But let's look at a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis was in a fantastic place. He latched on to Milwaukee, and we see what that has been able to do. Now, I don't know if he's ever going to reach the level of Giannis, because I think that's exactly absurd to say he'll be Giannis level. But if he's able to latch himself onto a place and build up, I think that will be huge for a guy like Sekou Doumbouya.
That's why, for me, with the two, first off, like the biggest knock, and I'm going to use air quotes, knock with Sekou is how long is it going to take him to come into his own? Where it's like, I like the Giannis tie-in because look at what, from beginning to where he is now, what Giannis has been. No one thought that Giannis would be what he is today the day he was drafted. And Sekou could be a really good NBA pro. With me, there's just so many questions because also I know that the situations aren't apples and apples or apples and oranges because they're different players and their bodies are different. But it also depends on the team and their kind of timeline for everything. Where if they're a team that's like, hey, we can take Sekou, we like what he brings, to me, I like with defensively the versatility that I mentioned it before on the mock draft, that he can guard 2 3s and maybe 4s at the next level. What team is going to say, even if he doesn't develop it, it takes 2 to 3 years, we're okay with that. And for me, the highest I could see him being picked is 9th by the Hawks, especially if the Hawks get a top 4 pick and don't go at a Jarrett Culver, who all of us had, or Jarrett Culver, I should say, who all of us had at 5. Let's say they get an RJ, or they get a Cam, or they get number 1, and they get Zion, then that could change their number 9 pick.
Why are you putting the cap on that?
Because I don't think Sekou goes top 5. I don't think the Sun...
And also right now Atlanta would be 10.
Yeah, I don't think that... I'm going off of our mock that was obviously old, but I don't think he'll be top 5. I don't think the Grizzlies... I don't think he fits what the Grizzlies would want. I don't think he fits... Maybe the Wizards. I'll throw out maybe the Wizards.
But is it about fit?
Yeah, I think
that's a big thing.
With Sekou, with me, it's not like fit on the court more. It's more about timeline, where to me, Sekou is not going to be a guy that steps in day one and is Luka level. Like, he's coming in, contributing right away. There is going to be a grace period where he comes into his own, and what team can take a stab on that? And that's why, to me, I see him more in that 9 to 14, maybe 9 to 15 range of the draft.
But then what makes Rui more ideal for a team in that range above him? Because you have him above him. What makes Rui more ideal for those teams, especially the ones that you named?
Number 1, age is a big thing. Where yes, he's already come into his own.
But he's 18, and what team is old in this range? Like what team is dying to get a guy who's 21 years old compared to an 18-year-old?
Well, like I had him go to the Grizzlies. I could see the Grizzlies do it. I could see the Wizards do it. They have John Wall and Bradley Beal. They could go after an older guy as well.
Why the Grizzlies then? Why the Grizzlies to Adam? Because their best and young piece was the youngest player in last year's draft, in Jaren Jackson Jr.
And with the Grizzlies, I've gone back and forth too, where maybe in the next mock I get shifted over to the Darius Garland pick. I haven't really solidified that, but for me at the time, I was just looking and it's like, hey, if Mike Conley's still going to be there, this is going to be a Grizzly team that wants to get better. And what do you go with? An older player in Rui Hachimura or an older player in DeAndre Hunter, and I picked between the two. For me, I just think that Rui's more of a player that can step in and help a team from day one more than Sekou. And if a team looks at it and goes, hey, we can wait for him to develop, then go with Sekou over Rui.
Why does day one matter when you're top 5?
Because there's some teams that want to get quickly out of that top 5. Where there's other teams that they're more putting it in the slow cooker and letting things go slowly.
Dave, what do you think?
I think that putting any pressure on a top 5, like there's so many guys who have been in a draft where they didn't look great for the first couple of years and then they got better. Like you don't always need to deliver in those first couple of years.
Yeah.
And what Rui can do is we expect him to be able to hit that mark. I'm not sure that I'm on the side of Sean. I don't know that any of these teams at the top necessarily need to get there. The Grizzlies you mentioned as a likely candidate because of they seem to always think they're in playoff contention. I'm not going to talk more shit about the Grizzlies today. I think I hit my quota for that for quite some time. But I would be interested maybe in just a lot of these teams. Yes, that might be the case. But I look at the best older players who came out of the drafts in the past, whether it was Kyle Kuzma, Malcolm Brogdon, like guys like that. They go so much later because of their age. And I wonder why do we feel that Rui is still worth that top pick because of his, like, I get it. They're not putting up the same numbers in college that he did.
Yeah.
But it begs that question of, when you're a year older, 2 years older, 3 years older in this case, how much of a difference does that make in your draft stock? Just because we know you can score pretty well.
Yeah.
You can get some boards, yes, and you can dish out the low post, okay. Like, I don't know if that necessarily... You're making me question, like, also, is this guy a top 10 pick? Is he a top 12 pick?
How much of his success is based on the team that he's on?
Is he the best player on his own team?
Like, last guy that I'm going to bring this up.
I love Brandon Clark.
We keep moving towards... That's a good point. But even with that Brandon Clark thing, let's say even Brandon Clark over Sekou Doumbouya. I'm going to go back to Giannis. I know Sekou Doumbouya is not Giannis. I want to make that extremely clear. He is not Giannis. He will not be Giannis. He might be a very good player, but he's not going to be an MVP level.
You're saying he's going to be Kawhi Leonard.
He's going to be, exactly. He's going to be Kawhi Leonard. Different player. Yeah. But let's look at that Giannis draft. Giannis went 15. We all know that. There's not a lot of stars in that draft. Anthony Bennett was number 1. Only guy you could say is a star is Victor Oladipo, but Giannis is clearly better. Giannis is the best player of that draft at 15. He was coming from Greece, fairly unknown, smaller guy, right? He had a lot of potential, but it was a potential pick, and you took a chance on him.
Yep.
2 slots above him, there was a center from Gonzaga who was a junior, Kelly Olynyk. If you're looking at Boston, who it was Dallas traded him to Boston, if you're looking at that pick, you're going to take Giannis, right? And it's laughable to even throw that out there. And it's just really the question of these guys who are in systems, who are fantastic players in this system, what is their top end? And what makes Hachimura's top end different to you, Ricky, compared to other guys who have come out of Gonzaga? Because you look at Gonzaga guys, there's no pros that right now are great in the
stars,
NBA.
yeah.
Well, and
Kelly's like a good player.
Number one, I want to take that and just throw it out the window.
That's fine, but
you've gone against it with John Morant. Where people have said, well, how good could John Morant be?
Mine's different. Mine's saying because Gonzaga is so good that they have such a great system, it allows people to shine. It lets people see these players like Rui Hachimura because they're so deep into the playoff run. It's the same thing with Duke. It's the same thing with North Carolina. It's the same thing with Kentucky. These guys get looked differently because of the teams that they're on, because they are helped by the great coaching of Mark Few, John Calipari,
and
Coach
that's K. A little bit.
We talked about this with Nasir Little and Roy Williams. What stars are there from North Carolina that are on the floor? I'm just saying, like, John Morant's different is because, let's look at the pros that are in the NBA and how bad they are. That means since they're a small school, they can't produce pros. I'm not saying that Gonzaga can't produce pros because they're a small school. I'm just saying they have such a great coach that helps these guys develop. And then they're not able to grow that development because Gonzaga is such a culture, such a team mentality that it's stunted because Mark Few is such a excelled coach that they might never get that coaching at the next level.
Well, and the thing that I look at when I see Rui out there, like, is he obviously he's not a player where it's not like I'm watching Zion where I'm like, yes, he is the best player in college basketball. But I look at a guy, and yet again, it could be because early in the season I kind of fell in love with Rui, where it's like, hey, you know what? I like what he brings to the table. He's got a shot. He shoots well from the line. He's able to get to the basket.
Does he have a shot, though? Because he's not taking any threes.
Well,
and I know it's not in the system, but also, like...
Yet again, that's the thing of, like, you were talking about, what team is he on? Right now, he's playing more of the 4. And the thing that I look at, and this is a conversation that we could have, is... Yes, he only shoots about 1 3 a game on average, but he's making 46% of those threes. So to me, that tells me that the shot is there. It's not like he has to fix his shot, and that just with more repetition.
But then again,
with more repetition, he could potentially get that up.
But here, let's look at Giannis, for example. Giannis's rookie year, he took 1.5 threes a game, made 34%, and he's a shooter. And last year, he shot 76% from the line. Is Giannis a dangerous three-point shooter?
Actually, watch him in the last, I think, 3 month split. He's actually picked up a ridiculous percentage.
In broad sense of terms.
No, he's not going to be Steph Curry.
Is Giannis a dangerous three-point shooter? I mean, I'm not saying Steph Curry. Is he a dangerous three-point shooter? Giannis... Right now, although he could still develop into it, right now is not a deadly three-point shooter. I don't want Giannis taking 8 threes a game. Like, that was my question with Hachimura.
I don't see him being he's never going to be a deadly three-point shooter, but can he add enough of them to the game to make him a little bit more versatile? I think he can. I think the shot is there. It's just, why isn't he taking it enough? It's exactly what you said. That Bulldog team has a way that they work. This is how we win games. And it's not something to where, hey, I have to do this to get noticed on scouts. The thing with Rui that's going to make or break his draft stock is the combine. When we see him in drills, when we see him go on the 5-on-5, that is what we're going to get with Rui, watching him going up against this draft class.
The thing with Rui is 23 of the 30 games he's played, he's taken 1 or less threes. So that's the thing. It's just like, yes, he's shooting 46%.
And like the one three that he took, one of the threes he took against BYU recently was point guard comes around, or then it was a long 2 that I watched where
take a 3 in any of the BYU
they
games.
passed it back and he shot it and made it, where it wasn't like him driving up and creating space. No, they threw it to a wide open Rui and he took the shot.
I just don't know. Even if the mechanics are fine, it just doesn't mean he's going to be a 3-point shooter.
Well, and I'm not saying
it's
it's what
you're
be
comfortable with.
3-point shooter, but he can add it to his game.
Ben Simmons just isn't comfortable taking threes. Like, I don't know if he's going to be a guy who ever has that next level in him. And also, it's a college 3. What happens when you step back a little bit? Like, that's my big questions with Hachimura. It's like, yes, he can always develop it, but also he's 21. and Sekou can develop a better shot because he's got 3 more years on him to develop that shot. And Sekou has 3 more years to get to where Rui is, physicality-wise. Like when we're talking body-wise, if they're both the same height, like he has those 3 more years to gain up that muscle, to gain up that size. And then you look at just like the...
But do you think offensively he'll ever be where Rui's at? Because I think that Rui's able to get to the hoop very easy. I think that'll translate to the NBA, where Sekou, his shot has been questionable at times. I haven't really seen him dominate since like the under-18 games.
Yeah, that's a good
year.
point.
So that's the thing is, offensively, I get they play differently they play young players differently, but it just comes to the point where it's like you look at his games and yeah, he's good for anywhere from like 6 to 12 points, and that's about the middling range. He didn't do anything in the playoffs recently, so I just look at him and go, is he someone who is going to top out as a potential? Yes, you're an athletic freak, but you might just be a good defender, bad shooter. Or do you think that his offensive game can evolve? Do you think that he can put a shot in there? Because I look at Rui and I go, that guy can get me buckets. He can play okay defense. I look at Sekou and I know physically he's more gifted, but can he get better at scoring?
Mm-hmm. I think the thing with Sekou that stands out to me, at least scoring-wise, is he's not afraid to drive and attack the basket. So as a cutter, I think that he can be extremely dangerous. In transition, I think he's going to be as good as near Rui level. I think Rui's pretty good in open space. I think Sekou will be good at attacking the basket as well in open space. And again, he's still got that 3 years to develop that.
I understand.
So if he's put in the right system, and I don't think his shot's necessarily broken at all. Like I think the base is fine. I think the actual shot is fine. It's just the fact that I don't know if he's comfortable in the spot that he's in. So I don't think we're talking about Sekou having a broken shot at all. I don't think he's going to need to strip it down and rebuild it.
Doesn't have an amazing free throw percentage. His shot from 3 has not been great.
But the actual shot isn't bad.
The motion itself, I don't know.
Yeah, the motion isn't bad. It's fairly quick. Yeah. His feet pretty much stay under him. It's straight up and down. It's nothing like he's leaning forward, lunging forward. He goes up and
from
forward.
the hip.
Yeah, and he's shooting like right in front of his forehead too.
Shot Dr. Sean.
So hey, I fixed yours,
Coach Dave.
And then you couldn't do it. But yeah, no, I think that the thing with Sekou is like the shot form is there, and I think that if you have a shooting coach and you have this. You have a shot doctors over here. If he starts working with Drew Hanlon.
By the way, just to make that point, Giannis, December, shot 22% from 3 on 2 attempts. In January, it was up to 33% on 2.6 attempts. And in February...
Nice, Dave.
In February,
classy.
It was 40% at 2.8 attempps.
Okay, so he had one good month?
He did progress in 1 year. Do you not realize that? That's incredible. Like that's
1 month, Dave.
I don't care. It's 3 months in a row of straight progress. He's added more attempts and he's gotten better at shooting them.
All right, here he was 0 of 3, 0 of 2, 0 of 2, and so he had 3 games where he was 0 for.
Individual games
he had
are cool.
a 3 of 4.
I'm just talking about a month.
He had a 3 of 4. He had a 2 of 3, and he had 3 of 3. Like he had 3 good games. It doesn't mean he's going to turn into a great 3-point shooter.
I'm not saying
it's
great,
progress.
But I'm saying the fact that in 3 months he went from shooting 22% on 2 threes a game to 40% on 3 threes a game is pretty impressive.
He also played less games though. That's what I'm saying.
Only give you the month
he probably
count.
had those. He probably had stretches where he had good shots, but in December he probably had some of those games where he was 0 for. I'm looking at the stats right now. He went 0 for 3, 0 for 2, 3 for 3, 1 for 3, 2 for 3, 0 for 2, 1 for 2, 3 for 4. I'm not wowed by any of those numbers.
Yes, but Giannis is able to add a shot, and in 3 months he's consistently improved. And this is year 1 of Coach Bud and the shooting coach who came over with him. So I would just say it's doable to improve a shot like that.
Yeah.
So Sekou should have some hope there, but I think it's you're putting a lot of faith into he lands in the right system.
But I don't think he's as bad as a shooter as Giannis is. That's what I'm saying. I don't think he's when we're talking.
I don't think so either.
Young Giannis. I think he's got a better start than Giannis did. Giannis, it's taken 5 years, 6 years to develop that. I don't think it's going to take Sekou that long.
But
I think
it took Giannis until he had a coach. Can I just say that out loud?
That's fair.
And not get yelled at because they think that's the big thing. Is you're saying what if he lands in the right system? What if he doesn't?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What if he lands on a team what if he gets franked?
But
where he's stuck on a team where he has no help from the coaching staff. They drafted him to be a triangle player, and guess what? We don't run the triangle anymore. I've got a terrible coach who won't give me consistent minutes, randomly benches him. what if he gets put into a situation like that? Because I think Rui would thrive in a team like the Knicks where it's just everything fucking goes.
Well,
here's run ISOs.
Here's the thing it's a big thing of like spot for any prospect.
If he lands on the Spurs or the Heat, of course I think he'll be fucking amazing.
But I think one thing that like if he goes to Minnesota where I put Sekou, I'd be worried about his development because we don't know who the coach is. We don't know. We look at the development of that team so far, and like Cat is just naturally gifted. He was a #1 pick. I think Okogie's getting by on a lot of his athleticism. But outside of that, like who's developed extremely well in the Minnesota system since Kevin Love?
Not Wiggins.
Not Wiggins. Wiggins is just good, and he's a good scorer. That's the thing. He's never gotten better.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say. Like people might look and be like, oh, he's putting up 20 points, but like again, he's not gotten better.
But if you look
Wiggins.
and I'm just throwing this out, where you look at where Dave and I have him, I actually like both of those situations. Dave to the Heat, you got a guy like Spoelstra who's there. Their timeline isn't going to be winning right away. And then the Pistons as well, working with Dwayne Casey.
Well, how does that help him?
Because I like Dwayne Casey as a coach and can help his improvement.
What young players has he developed outside? I mean, I don't want to give him. I don't want to give him credit for Siakam, but
guru, but like I would say, coach stability with the Pistons is good. It's not like it's going to be like
do we
Dave
have stability? If he doesn't make the playoffs again, he might be on the hot seat.
He's not going to be on the hot seat.
I mean, right now he's barely in the playoffs.
Yeah, but
if he gets knocked out, he might.
I don't think they.
No, I'm saying next year. Like if he misses the playoffs 2 years in a row, he might be in the hot seat.
I think he's got two years easily guaranteed.
I'm just saying he'll be in the hot seat. I'm not saying he'll be fired.
The best.
There's a difference between being fired and being in the hot seat.
He can sit on the hot seat for 2 years. Then I don't care. It's still going to be the head coach.
The other thing too with the Heat too is like, who have they really developed?
Yeah.
Like, Justice has come along, but it's taken Justice a long time to come along.
But he was also uber raw when he came out.
Okay.
You know who could be a really good situation?
Yeah.
The Celtics. Since they got so many picks, if like Sekou's there at 14.
That's the worst option.
I think they're too logged because he's
he won't
gonna
get minutes.
if he plays.
But if they trade some of them for AD, or if one of them gets RFA into another team,
then you're put in the wrong situation of high pressure. High pressure, you're working with Stevens, but also can you get enough time because you have so many guys that need attention?
Yeah.
Like, I think
I'd be afraid of that situation.
There's positives and negatives. I think that if we're looking top 10, because I have Rui in my top 10.
Yeah.
I think Memphis.
And you're going to flip him coming into this next mock, you say? Yeah. You're likely. Okay.
Most likely. I think Memphis is a good spot for him to land.
Yeah.
I think Atlanta's a good spot for him
You're
to land.
talking Rui or Sekou?
Sekou Doumbouya.
Okay.
We'll talk about Rui. I think Atlanta's a good spot for him to land. I think Memphis is a good spot for him to land. I also think that, oddly, Washington would be good for him to land because Bradley Beal, John Wall, they've done a very good job of building those guys up, and I think that also is a credit to them as well. But I think having a veteran presence would be big for him to take that next step. So I think 5 through 7 would be a good spot for him because I think New Orleans is going to be a little bit iffy with all the commotion that could go around. But I think having Washington, Memphis, and Atlanta would be probably the 3 teams that I look at to take Sekou Doumbouya.
I mean, Memphis did sign Bruno to an actual contract, so
that's true.
I don't know. His spot might be taken. Is Sekou 2 years away from being 2 years away? I don't know.
Hope not. But I think those would be the 3 teams that would be nice for Sekou, unless you guys have a different team that is very clear in your mind, whether it be in the top 10 or not.
And I love Miami. I think that in my mind is one of the better ones. But that's just purely from a coaching standpoint. I think that they would be able to really do a good job for him. Washington, I'm afraid, purely from a coaching standpoint.
I think Scott Brooks is fired, though, right?
I mean,
maybe not so sure. Maybe
there have been so many questions I've had about not only the coach but also the front office. There, I can't.
That's fine. Grunfeld's a bad GM.
Yep. So Memphis would be interesting. I think defensively, like you said, he would be able to step in day one, be okay, probably. And you get to work with
Marc Gasol, Jaren Jackson.
Marc Gasol's not there.
Mike Conley.
Mike Conley. I was trying to think of their coach, and it's killing me.
JB.
Yeah. Who I think he's got potential as a head coach, but I don't know. I'm still floating in that area. I'm like, I think I'm leaning closer to like maybe that 7 through 10, 7 through 12 range. How about you, Ricky? For
8 through 11.
Sekou.
Pelicans, Heat, Hawks, Magic. That all.
What makes them
those,
good for those teams? I mean,
for
outside
those
the
ones,
Hawks.
like the Pelicans, they're entering the post Anthony Davis, so there's going to be time for. He's not going to be rushed into anything, so he's going to have time to develop. And they're another team where I don't think Alvin Gentry is going to be like canned like Dell Demps was. I think there's more respect for
I don't think there's a reason to fire him
Gentry in that organization than there was for Dell Demps. Miami Heat, like we said, like they're rock solid with Spoelstra's not going to get fired. They're going to be a team that's not going to be competing and he can develop with. The Hawks could just be a team where it's like, yeah, we can go and compete, but also we've kind of stacked up a little bit.
I'm actually liking the
to where
Hawks.
you can just freaking just sit there and develop. And then with Orlando, I know Orlando's going to get mad because they're going to be like, Ricky's not a 2-guard. But, I mean, if they really like him, they could sit there and go, hey, develop on this team with all of our starters that we have. And, like, Clifford's not going to get fired from Orlando.
But Clifford is a guy who does not play his players, like his rookies specifically. Like, he's not giving a ton of minutes to Mo Bamba. He wasn't giving minutes to...
bad and hurt.
He wasn't giving
that might not be a
minutes
bad
to
thing
Malik
for
Monk at all.
Sekou. Like, it might not end up being a bad thing.
He needs time. I think the best place for him would be the Hawks.
The Hawks would be intriguing.
You look at them, Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, Taurean Prince, and then at the 4, you move Collins to the 5. We keep talking about what?
You can't move Collins to the 5. He's so bad defensively.
But my thing is that Sekou would probably most likely, and
Sekou can't guard 5.
I think he can. I think he has the potential to 1 through 5, just because of his size. If we're saying he's still growing,
I don't see it.
To be fair, the last time he was measured, I think, was when he was still 17, or when he was still just turning 17.
6'9", 210 is what we're saying, and we're also saying that he's going to add weight and add size coming on to an NBA team.
His agent in a recent article that I saw said 6'9", 6'10 will probably be what he's measured at.
All right, so if we're saying 6'10", I think he can guard 5s.
Maybe.
I think he's quick enough. I think he's strong enough. Because even though he's not, 210 is kind of small. For a 5, I still think that he can add weight, and also I think he's just naturally strong. I think he has that kind of athleticism. I really like him. I think that's what I'll say. I think the Hawks would be an intriguing spot for him.
Unless the Hawks just do what Dave did and gives them Zion at number 1. Because you hit Sim lottery.
I did. I hit Sim lottery. Zion got one.
That would be obviously different.
So, no, I mean,
change up the strategy.
It does depend on how that rolls out, which is honestly a ton of the fun of this year's draft is the new odds. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think that
I'd laugh if they stay chalk.
I was on the fence on this coming in, and I think it's going to come down to a team need. I think that, like you said,
something you don't hear from Dave too often.
Well, no, I think like you said is no teams in the top 10 necessarily need a guy who can perform day 1, but I do know what Rui Hachimura can do, and I think that he's not done growing as far as where he's at. I like the bringing up the playing the 3 is interesting to me. Sekou, he could be great, he could be terrible. It's just higher floor, lower ceiling.
Yeah.
So if you're in that 10 through 12 range, 10 through 15 range, Rui might have a better career.
I just have a feeling for Sekou, you do not want to miss out. I'd rather miss than miss out,
Okay.
Now, when I say this, I'm not comparing player to player, apples to apples. I'm saying situation.
Right. People are still going to take it this way.
I could see Rui Hachimura, if he lands in the right situation, being much like a Klay Thompson, where it was like, Klay,
what the fuck?
Just hear me out before you say what the fuck and everything.
Okay,
so
I'm just saying
he was a guy
the players that you have compared Rui Hachimura to are Klay Thompson and Giannis Antetokounmpo.
3-year guy in college, so yet again, coming into the league at the same age.
Yeah.
He was drafted at 11, so wasn't a top pick guy, wasn't towards the end of the lottery, but he was a guy, yes, they had a plan and he could go behind Steph, but also, let's say Rui goes to let's say Atlanta. He could be a guy that, hey, I'm going to fit this role. I'm going to do these things that I do well, really well for this team. And if he lands in the right situation, could be a Klay Thompson-esque player to a team of, hey, this is what he does, and this is what he does really well, and it helps him
be one of the best role players in the NBA.
It could be Justin Jackson. I don't know.
Yikes.
I just don't see it for him. I mean, we if we're doing the drafts that we have covered and juniors that have gone in the top 10, or juniors or seniors, right? Chris Dunn was the first one. Buddy Hield was the second. And then Don Maker ended up coming out of high school. It said junior, so I was thrown off.
So right Chris there, Dunn, the first two.
50-50.
Chris Dunn and Buddy Hield. The next one, top 10, was none because they didn't take any. The next one that was the first one off, though, was Justin Jackson. Then we go to 2018, and we had coming out, again, top 10 was Mikal Bridges. So Mikal Bridges, Chris Dunn, and
Are any of
Buddy
us
Hield.
low on Mikal Bridges right now?
No.
No. And like the thing with the first two that you mentioned, Chris Dunn was in a shit situation with the T-Wolves and then got traded for Jimmy Butler. And then Buddy Hield was arguably in a not right spot in New Orleans. And now that he's switched over to the Kings, has been flourishing.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
I'm not bashing the Buddy thing.
Big leg play,
but I
shoots
think
like Steph.
I think the thing with Chris Dunn, I mean, again, like Buddy Hield was a much better college player than Chris Dunn was.
Wooden Award winner.
And you
Put
look
some
at
respect on that name.
you look at who was the kid from last year? I totally blanked.
Mikal.
Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges is still trying to he's not like a full-time starter on that.
He's on a terrible team.
He's on
that
the
has
Suns
the best
Suns team.
One of the best prospects on their team is a 2-guard. So you know, he gets to ride the bench behind
Josh
Jackson at the 3, and then Dev Booker at the 2. So like, I don't know that he would start over either of those guys.
But that's kind of concerning to me is the fact that Josh Jackson
Really?
Josh, I'm not over Devin Booker. Obviously, Devin Booker's ridiculous, but Josh Jackson really hasn't been great.
But this is
all.
when they have to figure out if Josh Jackson's going to be with them because this is year 3, right?
Yeah, I mean, and Mikal Bridges has shown great flashes. There's
Yeah, I mean, he's shooting pretty well still.
couple
and
games.
Defensively, I think that one of their best lineups was having him, Jackson, and DeAnthony Melton out there. And they're actually playing pretty good defense for a bit.
Yeah, I just think that again, you can't miss out on Sekou. That's my big thing with it, and we'll obviously come down to what the draft order comes out and what teams are feeling.
Yeah, I think that's going to matter a lot.
I just think that
Team like the Hawks could get a bargain.
Rui's a little bit limited, but that's my opinion. Final thoughts. You good?
No, I'm good.
Good.
Nope, solid.
Cool.
Still
Let's
on the
end
fence.
it. Still on the fence, Rui Hachimura, Sekou Doumbouya. Let us know down in the comments below which side you're on. That's going to wrap it up for the Fast Break Podcast. Next week's going to be a very special episode where Dave ruins his laptop more. We also will have a very special guest on the podcast, so definitely stay tuned for that. If you're listening on iTunes, rate this 5 stars if you have the time to. We would very much appreciate that if you did so. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. I think I already mentioned it, but why not mention it twice? And also follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/mostvaluablepodcast. For Dave Oster, that's Ricky Widmer. I'm Sean Anderson. See you next time.